And now for the much anticipated #1 choice for Gayest 16-bit game. That isn't Choaniki. I don't want to get you overexcited here, but you're about to see the gayest sprite animation in the history of video games. Here it is. Oh yeah. For whatever reason, it likes to start on the crotch, then, move up while he rips off his shirt. This game is amazing. Saturday Night Slam Masters by Capcom. First of all, it has Haggar, and I think I like Haggar, but it has an incredible cast of big bears doing the gayest sport in the world, which is, of course, professional wrestling. So you've got big guys, you've got muscle guys, you've got Haggar wearing some awesome colored pants. I mean, Haggar in kind of reddy orange, getting pinned. It was originally an arcade game. Here is one of the flyers. There's some of the Japanese art. It was also out on Super Nintendo, as you can see here, and a kind of slightly different looking cover for the Genesis version. There's two modes. There's a single player mode and a tag team mode. And I like the tag team because you get Jumbo, who is, for fans of Big Bears out there, pretty amazing, based on John Tenta, aka Earthquake. Very obviously inspired by him in terms of look. There's also the Gunlock character who's sort of guileless, and Haggar, who has a different look than what Capcom was doing at that time, where they gave him a ponytail in Final Fight 3 and made him just huge. Here he's more lean. And then there's Grader, who is a muscle guy in the concept art, but is actually based more on Vader, a very hot, big wrestler from the 90s and 80s. So I got to choose my ideal team here, which I think would probably be a combination of Jumbo, who, I do like a lot, and Haggar. And because it's a wrestling game, it's got to have all the wrestling game things, like the awesome intro, where you got Jumbo wearing a Pippin hat, and then you have the bad guys coming in, Boo Hiss. This one guy, he looks a lot like T-Hawk, but is supposed to be actually a rival to the Street Fighter 1 and I think Alpha series guy, Birdie. What is interesting about this game is it's not a straight fighting game, it's a wrestling game. So you have a Z-axis, you also have pins, and the health meter doesn't mean an instant death. There are special moves in this game. Haggar's got his spinning, but it's more about wearing the enemy down and pinning them, which, by the way, just looks pretty incredible. There's so much manly grappling in this game. I know I've got a thing for wrestling, but seriously, they must have noticed how kind of gay this thing looked when they did it. One of the best things about this game, actually, is the art style for the characters, although you'll notice the portraits are much smaller, much leaner, and there's a lot of characters, like especially Biff and Titan here, with really long legs. There's kind of a weird divergence from what Capcom was doing with their art at the time. I said before, Capcom, meanwhile, is making very huge characters, but the men in this game, in their character art and in the portraits, are much more muscular. This is because the art was actually done by, I believe, called Tetsuo Hare, who you might recognize as the guy who designed Fist of the North Star. So everyone kind of has that Fist of the North Star look to them, which is why you get the really long legs and crazy pointy chin of characters like Biff Slamovich, who apparently was trained by Zangief, if you want to go deep into Capcom lore. So why is this the #1 gayest game? I mean, I'd say the opening title sort of gives it to you. The characters, if you like the Capcom style of drawing just huge men with lots of muscles, and they aren't afraid of showing fat guys as well. For people into bears, the art style of this game is second to none. It's really pretty impressive. As gay as I think Final Fight is, I'd say this game actually is quite a bit gayer, just because it's celebrating something about wrestling which they're kind of shying away from in WWF, which is the whole homoeroticism. I mean, that's why in the mid-90s you started seeing a lot more women in wrestling. It became more about smaller guys rather than real wrestlers. And you have the fact that Japanese just aren't afraid of big muscle men, like sort of the Western audience is, where you don't want to be overly fawning over someone's size and musculature in art or in the way the game's presented, because you don't want to seem gay. This game was also called Muscle Bomber in Japan, which is just an awesome name. It did have a sequel which came out in the arcades only, called Super Muscle Bomber, or Slam Masters 2 Ring of Destruction, I think. Had a couple new characters, but it was actually a side-scrolling fighting game rather than a 2 versus 2 fighting game. So it was a one-on-one side-scroller. And one more thing, it's got the death animation for the continue, where they just start, panting and looking frightened. And it also does something that you rarely see in a video game, which is show off characters' butts.